sharing love for many, many years now. They are working through this coronavirus, still doing what they do over there, making meat happen. So if you get a chance, get over there and look them up. They are still working hard in there and still making it happen, like I said, okay? So that is our special guest today, is a Liberty Farms duck breast. I thought I would talk about some pan work, as I said today. When we do pan work, let me turn this off. When we do pan work, we're usually talking about 2 or 3 different cooking techniques, okay? When we, last week we talked a little bit about saute and searing and all of that. We talked about a very, very high heat, a little bit of fat, and we were talking about golden brown at the end. That's what we were looking for. Rendering is totally, totally different. When people cook bacon, that is not a sear, okay? That's a render. And rendering is at a different temperature, and we kind of treat it a little bit differently. And then another phase of stove work or pan work is pan frying. That's another one, right? And so that's a whole other temperature range, a whole other set of circumstances, and we're looking for different circumstances in that one, okay? So we're gonna break down those 3 today just to kind of make it clear for everybody. And then another thing we're gonna do, I figured I'd just kind of complete the dinner, you know? I don't wanna just eat duck breast tonight. So I was gonna bang out a gnocchi. There's a good technique right there, knowing how to make a gnocchi. I'm making a potato gnocchi today. There are several different types. We have semolina gnocchis that are made out of semolina flour. They look like polenta cakes or something like that, if you've ever seen them. And we also have ricotta gnocchis as well. And ricotta gnocchi is really, really simple. It's very, very similar to this potato thing. When I'm doing a ricotta gnocchi, I kind of just would buy a tub of ricotta, kind of dump that out, and then I would just put an equal amount of flour right in that tub, and that was my measurement. And it was just that 1-to-1 ratio. Put a little nutmeg and a little seasoning with salt and pepper and a little bit in there and everything, and you were done for a basic gnocchi. Super, super quick. And I've used that style of gnocchi for years and years, right? It's so easy to make. Today, like I said, we're gonna make a potato gnocchi. I'm gonna be serving that with a little bit of, I've got a butternut squash. I do wanna mention our other special guest, hard winter squashes during this coronavirus quarantine, okay? Hard winter squashes are definitely your friend. These guys last and last. Think about it. Back in the old days when we didn't have refrigeration, a thing like a squash or a cabbage, you could put that in a cool root cellar in a cool dark place, right? And it's gonna hold up for a long, long time, which makes it great for the quarantine kitchen that we are all living in right now, okay? These hard winter squashes, they're gonna hold up and basically get you through the entire winter. I already cut one end of this off. You know, this is a butternut squash. They usually have kind of a bulbous end. I already cut that off and used up the part that had the seeds in it. The rest of that is just all meat, right? And so that's a nice a valuable piece of food to have around your kitchen, right? I'm gonna be cutting off a chunk of this thing, just using a little bit. I'm gonna dice it up and I'm gonna incorporate it into our dish. Now, if I was a chef, and I kind of am, okay? I could actually, instead of using potatoes in my gnocchi, I could definitely do a butternut squash version. But as always, when I'm doing my classes, I like to keep things super, super simple, super basic. I want to show you the technique that I teach in culinary school, right? And if I'm making things too complicated, I'm starting off with a variation, I'm not doing you much of a service, okay? So you will always, always see me working and teaching the most basic versions of different foods that you see, okay? So that's what today's gonna be all about, okay? You're gonna see some of this later on, like I said, some gnocchi, some beautiful duck breast on there, and I'm gonna toss in a little bit of greens. I just had a few. I figured I'd throw them in there, a little color and a little more nutrients, right? Those leafy greens really, really pack a nutritional punch, okay? So I'm gonna throw that on in there, and I'm gonna have myself an entree, okay? In the meantime, we are having a happy hour here, so I hope everybody with me. I see a lot of people have rolled on in, and I hope we are all imbibing, because that's what happy hour is all about. This isn't just about cooking, guys. This is about getting our brains out of the house for a little while and getting out of our heads a little bit, okay? So let's just relax and get rolling here. We're gonna cook, we're gonna learn, we're gonna drink, and we're gonna have a good time, okay? Let me see who's here. So far, I got Colby Green. Good to see you, brother. Abraham Roots, a former student. Excellent. Rebecca. I got, Deanna. Okay, I've seen you around. Diane, Meg, Monica. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Let's see anybody else is here. Roberta Walker. She's back again for another week. You came back. And Ms. Secco. Good to see you as well. Awesome. Really good to see you guys, and it's good not to be alone, and it's good to have a little community outside of our own houses and outside of our own heads, right? So I really appreciate you guys doing this, and I got to tell you, you might enjoy, but I'll tell you what, I'm enjoying this a heck of a lot more than you guys. Okay, I live for this stuff, and I can't wait to get back to work and do this out in the public, because I'm tired of being cramped up in this little teeny crappy kitchen of mine, okay? So let's see, I've got a couple of things cooking already. I should talk about mise en place and things like that. I wanna talk a little bit before I get going, because a lot of the stuff I'm doing today is fairly simple stuff, okay? So I wanted to kind of tell a little story here, okay? And why I do what I do the way I do it, okay? I went to a couple of culinary schools in my life, and then I've taught in about 6 or 8 of them, and I've seen a lot of culinary programs, right? And I'll tell you, the best culinary program that I have touched was the CIA, okay? I went to the CIA. It was the second culinary school I went through, and what I loved about the CIA was they taught us the basic techniques in the beginning of that school, and then they never taught us that stuff again. Like, I would learn saute in the first class. I go to the next class, and they hand me a list of ingredients, and they tell me it's saute. I'm expected to know what saute is still. And that really got its hooks into me, because if I had those base techniques down, I didn't have to ask any questions anymore, right? I knew what it was, start to finish. Little variations took me the rest of the way, right? And so that's the way I approach cooking. The very first cooking class I had, I was a line cook. I was cooking in a hotel down in downtown Sacramento here, and a buddy approached me. He had a class scheduled, and he couldn't make it, and so he asked me if I would sub for him. The whole time I'm blowing him off. Hey, I work in a kitchen because I'm not comfortable around people most of the time, right? And so I was like putting him off, and he's like, no, I don't want to teach some little housewifey Susie homemaker class. I want to teach real stuff, If I can't teach techniques and actually teach people how to cook, I have zero interest in doing this. He told me, you teach it however you want to teach it, and so that's what I did. I went there and I laid it out the way I like to lay things out. It was a sauce class or something like that, and I laid down the basic techniques to cook French mother sauces for these people. This was light years before Food Network or anything like this. This is like early 80s, right? The people that were taking this class had never seen anything like it before, and quite frankly, they packed those classes. It was at a little place. You remember the Learning Exchange? There was one out in Elk Grove called Always Learning. Okay, and so they allowed me to put together a series of classes. I did like 4 classes of basic cooking technique, and it was packed every single time. They never had an empty seat in my classes, and I did that for about 3 years off on the side while I was still line cooking down at this hotel down here. Moral of the story is that very first class, it got its hooks into me. After I actually did it and walked out of there, I was feeling 10 feet tall, because I was actually teaching these people how to cook instead of how to follow a recipe. And it just made me feel so good. I felt like I was giving them a gift. You can feed yourself for the rest of your life, and I have never lost that. I really do feel that teaching someone how to cook, it's like that old adage, teach a man to fish and you can feed him for life. I really do feel that what I do teaches people, feeds people for life. And so that's why I still do what I do. That's why when this coronavirus hit, I decided to just keep on doing it in my house, right? I have to keep talking about this stuff. It's in me, and I got to get it out, okay? So that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's why I'm so focused on recipes. I want people to understand the techniques behind recipes. My classes are never about recipes. It's always about that technique, okay? So lots of technique going on today. I mentioned a little bit of mise en place in the beginning here. I had to start a few things. A couple of things I got going on. Let me lift this up. I've got a little pot of water on the other side of the stove here that I'm gonna be using for some gnocchi later on, right? I went ahead and brought it all the way to the boil, and I turned it off, and now it's hot. And when I need it, it's already hot. And I turn that fire back on, and I'm gonna get my boil right back, okay? So that's just a little tip for you. Just get your water on the stove, get it to a boil, turn it off, and it's kind of ready for later for when you need it. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm gonna drop in a bunch of salt, okay? You guys all probably are very familiar with cooking pasta. And so, again, a little bit of oil. I always talk about the oil does 3 things for me. The oil will, first of all, it kind of creates almost a lid on the surface of the water. You know how oil floats, right? And so a pot of water will come up to a boil faster if it's got a little layer of oil on the top of it. It's almost like having a lid on the pot. It just comes up faster, okay? Another thing that it does for me is it seasons the pasta or the gnocchi or whatever it is that I'm doing ever so slightly. You know, you can only get so much water in there, and I tend to season when I'm finished with that anyway. The best thing that I think the oil does in there is it keeps the foam down. You'll see pasta pots that get really, really foamy and they start getting all nasty, pouring over the sides and everything. If you have the oil in there, that will keep that from happening, okay? So a little bit of oil on the surface and also that salt in there, okay? So that's cruising. Another thing I was doing is I started baking some potatoes early for these gnocchi. If you guys are sitting there watching me bake them, it's going to take forever, right? So I got them in there. I wanted to talk about how to get them started. Oh. Just kidding, it wasn't that hot. I'm used to that. I got pretty hot hands, okay? But what I did was I had this potato and I just rolled it around and I poked a bunch of holes in it to let steam escape, okay? And since I'm not gonna eat the skin, I didn't do anything to the skin, okay? I just tossed it right into the oven and let it bake. I don't even have it on a pan. It's just sitting on the oven rack so hot air can completely surround that potato and really, really cook it much more efficiently, okay? If I do want if I am going to eat the skin, I like a crispy skin, and so when I do the skin, I will actually oil that. That'll give me a crispy skin. If you don't like crispy skin, leave the oil off. And then I also like to season up the skin too for my guests as well, and they get it, and the skin's all seasoned and it tastes good and everything. So poke the potato, oil the skin if you want a crispy crust, and then otherwise just toss them on in. You're gonna bake a potato. I've got pretty small potatoes here. They're probably gonna take 40-45 minutes. Usually a good sized potato, you know, your average potato, they're usually about 50 minutes to an hour or so, okay? So that's kind of what you're looking for looking at a baked potato. And by the way, if that hour doesn't work, every oven is different. Those are variables, right? Every oven's different. If that potato isn't done, give it a check, poke it with a knife or something like that, and if it's not done, just throw it back in and let it continue cooking until it's soft, okay? That's really all you need to know about a basic baked potato, okay? Later on, I'll pull those potatoes out once they're done. I want them completely done through and through, and then I will peel off those skins, and that's gonna be the base for my gnocchi later on. Let's see, that's all the mise en place that I have going on, right? All the stuff I had to get prepared beforehand. Everything else I like to keep undone. I like to do my cutting in front of you and all of that stuff, just so you can pick up techniques. It's all, everything I do, you know, from chopping herbs to cutting up a butternut squash, those are all teachable moments, okay? And so I wanna leverage those as much as humanly possible, okay? So, let's see, I think what I want to do now is I want to start out with my duck, okay? I want to get rendering done. Once I've got that duck in the pan, I want to break out. I'm just going to kind of talk about these techniques here, but let's talk about the difference between rendering, pan frying, and searing, your three main pan techniques on stovetop, okay? So let me wash hands again, and I'm going to grab that duck, and we're going to get going. Give it to me, what you say. Give it to me, what you say. Ow, I was listening to some Rick James earlier. Okay, here we go. Got it going on. Let's see. Let's see what people are saying. You guys are just watching. Hey, I know you love. My batteries are low. Okay, Roberta's got low batteries. Okay, Meg Bond, Monica. Oh, look at all these people. Rachel, there's Abraham again, Katie Wise, Colby Ring, Shauna, Rick, Nathan. Awesome, Nathan. Good to see you, bro. Adrian Day Murchison. Awesome. Got some culinary talent there. Look at that. Letitia. Awesome. Good to see you. Roberto. Aniko. Good to meet you. We just friended you the other day. Awesome. Look at all these people. George, Patrick. Oh my gosh. Rolling on down. Thousands of people. I can't even keep up, okay? It's awesome. It's awesome. Okay, so what I want to show you is my duck breast. And you can see I haven't trimmed any fat off of that or anything like that. I haven't trimmed the skin. The skin is the most delicious part of this, so I'm going to tend to leave as much skin on there as I can, okay? Another thing I want to kind of point out, this plate that it's sitting on, I stuck this plate in the freezer for a couple of hours, so it's just ice cold, and then I laid those duck breasts on there about 20 minutes ago to really, really firm up the skin, okay? The big thing with duck, you know,